Hi, and welcome to this episode of the We Are Voices of Ecology podcast. I'm Pauline, and in this episode, I interview Nina from Materials4Future, which is a collective she co-founded with her friend Guoda. In their collective, they explore material innovation and regenerative design through their own research, as well as workshops they host in algae, yarn, and printing. It's a beautiful blend between science and art, and an invitation for people to consider creativity and regenerative material design. This episode is more like a casual conversation where Nina shares her thoughts on material science, creativity, and how science and art can collaborate better for a sustainable future. We hope you enjoy our conversation and hearing from Nina. Episode links and extra information can be found in the episode description below. Thank you. Hello, Nina, and thank you for coming on today. How are you?
Hi, Pauline. Thank you so much for having me. I'm great and really excited for this episode.
Yeah, me too. I'm really excited to hear more about the background of Materials4Future, and as well, like how you sort of see it in the foreseeable future as well. But firstly, would you like to introduce yourself and like share who you are and what your disciplinary background is, and I guess what you're interested in and how you sort of came to be in Materials4Future?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Nina, and I'm one of the two co-founders of Materials4Future. Guoda, who couldn't join me today, is also part of this. And I would say that both of us have a pretty interdisciplinary background. I studied material science in the Netherlands, but this was in an interdisciplinary science degree, so I could take many courses also in ecology, for example, and we focused a lot also on art conservation, for example, which was very, I think, different from most degrees. And in my own personal life, I've always been very into art and design and combining that with science. So I think this kind of led me on this path.
Wow, that's really great to hear that you already come from a very mixed background, and like sort of makes you more open already to explore how like art and science can connect. How did you meet Guoda and how did you start Materials4Future?
Yeah, so Guoda and I, we met actually on LinkedIn, of all places. And we were both living in Berlin at the time. And I reached out to her because we were both in this very specific niche of being into bio-based materials specifically. So material design that works with biology and bio-based sources. And material science is already a pretty niche subject, but since we combined it with this even more like ecology focused discipline, it became just so specific. And then Guara also, like me, was very interested in fashion and activism, and she was also Eastern European. And then I didn't even know how LinkedIn worked exactly. I was in my early 20s and I was just like, she's cool, let's reach out to her. And she was like, thank God she was fine with it. And she was like, let's meet for coffee. And we just found out we had so much in common through that. And we decided to work together in some format because we felt both that it was so rare to meet someone who had studied such a similar topic and was so active in this sphere.
That's super nice that you met on LinkedIn. It's almost like you were treating LinkedIn as Facebook and you're like sending a friend request.
That's exactly what I did, yeah.
I guess with the beginning of Materials4Future, did you see that material science is already a very unique space? Was it that you were trying to create a space to explore this together and just see what happens? Or was it because you met another community as well from like a LinkedIn network where you thought we needed to connect better about
I
this?
think it was more the former, definitely, that we were both just very interested in this, but at the same time we felt a bit constrained by the only academic sphere within which it was operating in. We were both at the time figuring out our next steps in our academic and career professional life. So I think it just came at a time when we were both trying to have some creative outlet for our interest and at the same time combine it with our passion and what we also want to learn more about. So I think we didn't define it very much from the start. We called it a collective also to reflect that we want to collaborate and we've always wanted to connect with other people. And I feel like this is what we grew also so from much, that we always try to reach out to other people in this sphere, and we recognize that material design and regenerative design can involve so many different fields, not just scientific, but artistic and also communities and in general society. So we wanted to make it very broad on purpose, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. You said that, well, you mentioned regenerative design, and with bio-based material science, did you think that it came quite naturally, or did you think that you found regenerative design more through self-exploration?
I think the regenerative design aspect came more through Guoda originally, and I had more the bio-based material aspect as, yeah, Maastricht, where I studied, is very known for bio-based materials. But I think then I saw some of the limitations of that also, like only kind of naming something bio-based that it automatically becomes, like sustainable. I think I saw more fallacy with that then. And Guada was experimenting a lot with kombucha-based leather. She has her own brand for that, Kombutex, that people should definitely check out also. So I think she brought in also this perspective of using actually live bacteria and enzymes and bioagents into the mix. So I think we complemented each other very well actually also. And yeah, like the topic of regenerative design, it's still something that I think we're using more as a guiding concept. I don't think there's one clear definition for it. I think every designer approaches it a bit differently, but I think we're more like exploring it and using it a bit as a provocation of current ways of consuming and yeah, producing products in this world and kind of questioning it a bit also.
Yeah, because I guess with regenerative design, you're sort of looking at the whole life cycle of the product, whereas maybe
Yeah.
with bio-based material, you're saying it's more just like how the end product could be.
Exactly. I would also say that that was kind of what I recognized when I was working in labs. Also, that we were often designing these materials that were meant to be biodegradable, for example, but then they were biodegradable in a super specific context in a laboratory or, in a specific industrial composting setting, which, yeah, for people who may not know, this is like at very specific high temperatures and so on, which may not be achieved in a normal compost, like home compost. So I felt like this kind of limited, like this was a bit, I mean, it was a good step. I'm very happy that people are researching this. I want to preface with that, but I felt like we were lacking in like pure science a bit of this perspective of like how are users actually going to use this product? Where will the end of its life be, and in what wider environmental natural context is it existing in, and what bacteria will even degrade it? I feel like regenerative design takes more this kind of more holistic perspective, as you said, to consider what's the wider, yeah, context within which it exists, and how can also this system or how can this product within this system contribute also to some regeneration. Of course, it's, I guess, also very hard to always study this in such depth to know really like, okay, this will contribute to regeneration, but you can at least attempt to benefit the environment somehow. And often you can know that more when you specialize more in a local context. I think that's very important to study kind of local materials and local kind of practices that have existed somewhere for thousands of years, instead of, I guess, jumping on a new trend with some new bio-based material that is like very outside of that environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, like coming from this perspective, I think it's really wonderful because I think maybe the everyday person who is like conscious maybe of their impact. When you hear bio-based material or when you hear regenerative design, you might not know exactly the differences and you sort of just like pick the one that you think is best. And I think there's sort of like a responsibility from, I guess, scientists to already make the thing or the product great so that when consumers do purchase, they're sort of supporting, like helping support and like enable like the good practices rather
Yeah,
than just.
exactly. I think at the end of the day, I mean, scientists also want to do good. Like they also want to create sustainable material. I think it's just very important that we collaborate more with all sectors that are, because I mean it is a complicated system where where you need to understand behaviors of people also, because they are going to be using your product in the end. And yeah, so I feel like sometimes science operates in this kind of idealistic kind of box of thinking, and we need to take into consideration society a bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess how would you define or how do you view regenerative design and its philosophy? Like, can
Yeah,
you explain
so
more about it?
as I said, I view it more as a guiding concept, I guess, because it's hard to say that something is 100% regenerative or something, but I would say that it's a design concept that focuses more on systems thinking than perhaps traditional design approaches do. And it recognizes that we as humans, we live also in a natural system, that we're part of it, and there are many other species and that all have complex relationships between each other, and that our product or our contribution to this in the form of a product needs to fit in here somehow in this constellation. And then this regenerative design should also try to restore some of these imbalances that we contribute to with our consumption patterns and extraction and so on. So as I said, true regeneration may not always be possible, but I think it's a good step and good kind of context to start in, at least.
Yeah, seeing it as a whole first. And are there any examples or people that you are inspired by from this sort of field of regenerative design?
So if for like a general kind of example, I would really include hemp as a textile also, for example, as a possible regenerative crop, because it's something that has been cultivated for thousands of years. And in Europe, it originally was grown in colder climates, so like Scandinavia and Eastern Europe, where I'm from also. But it became like increasingly outlawed in the 60s because of associations with marijuana and so on. And it's actually a crop that has like great potential for crop rotations. It requires lower initial inputs than cotton, for example, also in LCA studies and so on. And so I think this is like a very simple example where you can again consider like, okay, you didn't have to, innovate with anything too crazy. It's just something that we have been using for a long time, that we that is kind of adapted for our climate in Europe, and that we can revisit maybe and reconsider. But of course, it has, limitations, that it, for example, doesn't take dye so well. So it can't be dyed so much as cotton can in like different colors and so on. So I think this again returns a bit to this whole concept like, okay, we would have to change the system a little bit, and maybe we as society would have to be more okay, I guess, with our textiles maybe not be such a huge wide range of colors, or something like that. Like it requires, I think, a bit of rethinking of the original status also. But that is, I think, a good example. But on a more specific level, with Materials4Future, we also do a lot of interviews, for example, with different designers and researchers. And one of them that Guoda interviewed was Ana Ololade Sangosanya. She's a PhD researcher in Brussels, and she created actually a new method for producing bio-based leather by feeding denim textile waste to mycelium, so to a part of the mushroom. And she showed in her research that this mushroom can partially digest the denim waste and create this like leather-like surface from it. And she used this to create also leather jackets then. So we thought this was also an amazing example of basically feeding waste to a mushroom, creating a jacket out of it, and then that jacket can also biodegrade later at the end of its life. So it was a fully circular product in a way, and created in a very like specific context. So yeah, so again, this is maybe not fully adaptable to our current system and current kind of way in which we operate, but it serves as a provocation, I think, also. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's kind of cool to consider having. I feel like with fashion as well, generally you naturally go through cycles, and as a person, like you choose and decide to wear particular things. So I think it's a nice way of thinking. Like imagine if I like purchased a leather jacket that could decompose in a natural way. I feel like that would even change the way that you would maybe treat the product itself. It's not that it like is a disposable way of thinking, but more treating it in I don't know where
I
my thought
like
was
the
going there,
idea that
but
you said
yeah.
of cycles there. What you use the word like is that fashion is in cycles. Fully see that, and I feel like it's something that already like it could be very in a way compatible with this more like that okay this jacket has gone through its cycle now and I'm no longer want to wear it so I can use it to enrich my compost for example or something I feel like um, that would be a more playful way, definitely, of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me of I don't know who the person is, but you know, when you pass away and you can cremate yourself, just like putting your yourself into compost instead for
Yes,
it's like a different way of thinking.
the
Yeah, like showing
nature.
that you're part of like a natural system rather than like removed from it. I think that's
Yeah, I mean,
really
I
cool.
think there is some startup in Belgium even designing like what is it called in English? Like with the thing you're buried it in the
The coffin?
coffin. Yeah, like
Yeah.
making a coffin out of also mycelium, out of like mushroom stuff.
Yeah.
But I remember we were discussing like an LCA of your own degradation and like you would could
Yeah. We're looking at the waste management of
yes.
the end life of, of the human.
We're
It's
all part of nature.
exactly. Yeah, it really, the mycelium example of the leather jacket is really cool because mycelium is so great for example, for like citizen science because you can just like, it's quite easy for you to sort of just start doing it yourself and you can like train your mycelium to like learn how to just live on particular like feeding products. Like for
Yeah,
example, there's like the oyster mushrooms that can grow from cigarette butts and things like
it's
that. And I
amazing.
think, yeah, mycelium is very powerful.
For nuclear waste also, for all sorts of things. And I feel
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I saw also a lot of examples where they're using also bacteria to that that like auto secrete also like calcium carbonates to help regrow different limestone parts also in for example regions affected by war for the buildings and so on. So I feel like it has a lot of regenerative potential also in general society also to kind of create these systems where our materials are treated in a way that they can help regrow or regenerate themselves. So,
Mm.
yeah, I mean, it all sounds very sci-fi, but I'm very into it. And I feel like, yeah, it will be something interesting for all of us to explore with maybe if we changed our relationship to how things are built and demolished also. And yeah.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. You started off describing how regenerative design is sort of based off a systems-based approach. Do you think that this sort of approach is not included so much in material science? And is there anything that you think learning about material science that they're not doing correct, or maybe they can learn from?
Yeah, so I feel like I touched upon that a bit with that kind of example that I had already that material science sometimes is a bit yeah like it's approached sometimes at a very fundamental research level when at the same time it's a very applied science and all materials that we're researching are to be applied in some context. So I remember I just found it surprising how very often, especially in the sustainability focused material research, we didn't talk about the kind of end user of the product and so on, and this whole life cycle perspective already. So I felt like this was really something that I was missing a bit in my previous education, and why I really wanted to study industrial ecology also, and work more with behavioral research also in the different EU projects. So I felt like that allowed me to kind of complement these perspectives a lot. Yeah.
Do you think that there's a tension between material science and regenerative design?
I feel like there's in general a bit of a tension between all scientific fields and design fields. I see more of this kind of, I don't know if it's the right word to use, but like yeah, some like skepticism from the scientific side community to kind of collaborate with designers, and I see a lot more enthusiasm from the designers side actually. Like
Mhm.
nearly always when Guoda and I are approached, it's because it's a designer who wants to collaborate, who wants to learn more from like the science side. And I wish there was just more kind of appreciation in general for, art, humanities, design, and all these fields from STEM in general, because I think they're both super important and they have so much they can, enrich our life with. So I think this is just my general wish also, and something that I will describe also with our collaboration more.
Yeah, do you see? I know that you just said that it was your wish for STEM to appreciate arts and humanities a lot better. I guess I feel like maybe there's an underlying assumption that maybe people don't see science as a creative field, and maybe that's how they delineate between science because it's objective, and arts and humanities is very subjective. So I guess. I'd like to hear more from you about how you see science and art working better together.
Yeah, I mean, for me, they have always been so important for each other. And I feel like almost all scientists I know that I'm close to are all very creative people. And I mean, we have always, I feel like when we look historically, humans have always been like the earliest paintings have been inspired by nature and depicting what's around us. I feel like, and science studies nature. So to me, it seems incomprehensible to like not put them together. And I feel like they can serve as a great way to just motivate yourself also to keep exploring. Because sometimes I feel like we also limit ourselves or the way society kind of defines creativity also. And we've talked about this also together that creativity is something that you can just kind of exercise and do, and it doesn't have to be tied to a specific outcome of something being beautiful or useful and so on. So I feel like it's just important that we in society do this regardless of our background and just exercise creativity more. And then I think maybe then people would see more of this connection between them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, creativity is a muscle that you just have to work.
Yeah, that's your saying. I love it.
Yeah, it's what I tell everyone because I think we meet a lot of people in our like field that will just out of habit, they'll just say, I'm not creative. I'm not gonna attempt to do this. But
Right?
I really like how you said that creativity doesn't mean that you have to create something beautiful or like in like needs to mean something like super nice, but it's just a way of maybe thinking differently or maybe stretching your brain to see it from a different perspective.
Yeah, because I feel like sometimes people misunderstand also, or because society kind of represents art sometimes in this very specific way that when you're creative, you have to create something specifically that is good also, like, you know. And I feel like that kind of also takes away from people who practice their whole life to be good at a specific art. Like for my brother, he is very creative and very talented, but he's also working hard to practice his skills. So I feel like this is kind of this whole aspect that you're not just good at it like that, and we all have the capacity to be creative. And yeah, and then whatever we produce, some days it's gonna be great, and some days maybe not so great, and it's just part of our expression for that day, I feel.
Yeah. And how do you implement, I guess, this philosophy of creativity and, being more curious between like science and art with Materials for Future? Because you have, for example, workshops where you use algae to create yarn to knit. And I would like to hear from you about how that sort of like came together to create this like really cool workshop.
Yeah, so um, I think Guara and I, we both missed kind of working hands-on with materials, as that is something that our lab-based education really taught us to like create these new materials. But then at the same time, we wanted to do it in a more playful and fun setting where people outside of a necessary lab training could do it also. And we wanted to also just have, yeah, fun with it and experiment also. And we're super into citizen science, also what you mentioned. So just this concept, I think, especially with very like emerging type of focuses like new materials, I think it's so valuable to have just general society, interact with a material and say how they would modify it and say what they think about it and so on. Because so many materials, I feel like, were created, like plastic was created in isolation from general society. It was kind of just given to society and kind of made, like mass produced for them. So I feel like it would be very interesting to kind of let society co-create a material that fits their needs actually. But of course, with Materials for Future, we're just doing these small scale workshops to kind of have people to teach them how to make different materials. We focus on algae for now and like alginate based materials, and we have like recipes. You can make it in a blender, and so it's nothing. You can just buy the ingredients online, so it's nothing complicated. And yeah, and then we have people from all sorts of backgrounds join, which is my favorite like part of it. We've had a dentist join, for example, because they used alginate, this material, for like new kind of biomaterials in the body also. So that's a thing. We've also had, yeah, of course, fashion designers join who are always so creative and interesting. They worked a lot with bioluminescent materials, also some fashion designers that we had coming. And yeah, we've had, of course, like scientists joining, also, people with kids. And I don't know, I just feel like it's a very fun kind of way for people who otherwise maybe wouldn't necessarily meet to meet.
Yeah, and just seeing like who is interested to like try it out. Just seeing algae yarn
Yeah.
in as like in the title. Well, I participated in one of those workshops and I thought it was really, really fun and very playful and kind of like we were saying with this like playing with your hands. I think being in the workshop, it was really nice, like sitting next to people that I didn't know and we're all just sort of having fun and play around with like this little algae yarn and seeing what we can create. And it was really cool. There was no pressure, I guess, to learn
Yeah,
something very like scientific or to make something very nice. It was very like playful and fun.
exactly. And I'd love to keep it that way also because, I mean, for Guoda and me, it's also an experiment to do this. And we're also just, yeah, having fun with it. Like, we always remind each other, like, okay, what do we want to do next? Like, we just want to have fun with it. And
Mm.
yeah, so that I feel like that has allowed us to really put in like very positive energy into the whole project.
Yeah, and I think it's nice because it helps you start building, I guess, a community of people who are like curious about what you're doing and interested in general about regenerative design and the opportunities that can come from it. And I guess it's like a nice way to meet physically with other people and start building a community physically as well. Do you also see that community building is really important in your collective materials for future and I guess in general regenerative design?
Yeah, I feel like this was an aspect that really positively surprised us with Guada when we saw how many people were actually interested in meeting physically to do things also and reached out to us from many different countries also online that we can't unfortunately do like a workshop in their country, but we would love to collaborate else in a different format. So we have tried to just find ways because Guada and I we also met initially online and to kind of promote this whole thing of you can meet people who are into the same hyper nerdy random thing and bond over it and do something together. So we've had a few reach outs to collaborate on some articles that we're writing, for example, or even helping people host their own workshops in different countries. We're in the talks now with different people about that. So I feel like it's become very like a super unexpected aspect of this that we enjoy the most actually, just meeting new friends through it also.
Yeah, and do you think that's what people enjoy the most about your workshops?
Yeah, I feel like people, especially because something, as you said, algae yarns, it really stands out when you read it somewhere. And people who may be into this kind of thing, it may be hard to meet others who like it, you know? So I feel like this just gives a space to people who have this very specific interests to meet others because it's specific, but at the same time, I feel like it's very interdisciplinary. So it allows people from all sorts of backgrounds to connect and kind of dream of a, I think, also an alternative future in a way with because all people who join these workshops we noticed are very into degrowth mindsets also and community living and kind of finding alternatives to the current the current status quo. So in a way it's been also a very like very energizing way to meet other people.
Yeah, and I should also say that you have, what's the other workshop that you also do where it's like printing?
um yeah, cyanotype, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, we've done that. We've also worked with Podgrond and we also created a workshop around paper making also, where we used grass to make paper. That was super fun.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, so I feel like we're just experimenting with different materials and seeing where we get also. But for now, we're working also on more articles. I feel like that is something that I enjoy doing super much in this duo, just writing and interviewing different people also to really have this collective aspect.
And just like building those relationships and sort of trying to get more people interested.
Yeah, it helps me so much myself also to learn about this, to just interview people and have them also have their work represented there. And yeah, so I'm kind of exploring new formats also and just seeing what works and what's like the best way to communicate science also and different research to really represent also what the people are doing.
Yeah, and I guess with people that are listening, how should they best interact with Materials for Future? And what are
Yeah,
some upcoming things that are happening that they should keep an eye out for?
thank you. Yeah. So we have an Instagram, Materials for Future. Then we have also a Substack where you can read our articles, and also a LinkedIn where we post more, like general updates, I would say. But the Instagram is best for following events, I would say. And for events, we're organizing hopefully an event soon with Slow Fashion Show here in Stockholm with Fashion Revolution also and Green Little Heart. That will be probably in April. And then an interview article for a really, really cool topic that I wanted to learn about for ages more. We are interviewing Kanta in Context, Yolene and Amber. They're two researchers who are working with kind of raising awareness about the Kantamanto market in Ghana. And that market takes in 15 million garments every week, apparently, of quote unquote donations. And we are interviewing them also to kind of shed light also on the very like the political ecology of this concept also and how Eurocentric a lot of legislations are with waste export, and so I think in this topic we will really try to show also waste colonialism. And so I think this really shows how Materials for Future is moving also into this direction of not just kind of showing individual materials, but trying to kind of investigate the whole system behind how materials are used and discarded in society and who benefits and who, at the same time is also affected negatively by consumption happening more in the global north. So I think, we are quite new to this kind of academic writing in this way, but I think it will be something that I will learn a lot from also. So I hope our readers will enjoy it.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And it's just like quite incredible to see how, even though I feel like you've been downplaying the whole like, oh, it's just a collective. And I think it's like quite powerful how you are able to sort of help connect a lot of these big topics and create like articles, for example, but in a way, like for example, the workshops, it's just like it's an entry point into making people think very differently about the wider scale of things as well. And important to just be aware of when you buy something, like what happens to it. And it, like you said, like people that attend your workshops are very interested in degrowth. And I think it's like a really long connection and trail that all becomes like a really big web of like ideas. And it's really cool to see how you and Guoda are like putting it together and trying to educate, but in a very playful way, and also just in a way that's not condemning people as well, you know, like making them just like a little bit more aware.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I think we have really tried with Guoda each time before we interview also someone, like see what we want to learn from it, and yeah, just create an approachable format for all of it. So yeah, so that more people feel hopefully inspired. We want to make it really into something that is inviting more people and down to earth, but at the same time more just like open. So we're still kind of exploring many different topics. I don't think we've ever had any sort of suggestion for an article that Guada and I suggested that either of us was like, whoa, that's too outside of our scope actually. So I feel like we're very broad with this, definitely.
Yeah, I love that you are sort of approaching it with a very learning sense as well, that both you and Guada are learning from something as well. And it's not like you created this collective because you feel that you are both experts that know everything. And I think that I feel like really sets the tone because it makes everyone more open to learning and just being aware of new things.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because both Guada and I mean, we were so also in a way like sick of having like everything to become a business mindset also, and like monetizing everything. And of course, that's like another discussion, like how can you make something sustainable also financially? But we really wanted to make it a priority, to make it something fun for us. And yeah, that's our priority.
Yeah, no, that's really lovely. Thank you so much for coming on to this podcast episode. I hope you had a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. I had a great time.
Thanks for listening to the Wave podcast. We are Voices of Ecology. Stay tuned and subscribed so you don't miss out on the next episodes. If you are inspired to act, share, and learn more, connect with us. Follow us on Instagram at WaveProjectEU. And share the episode with another person today. Every beat helps keep the wave moving forward.